In this video, I share the most important metric to focus on that strangely enough nobody talks about. You will know the 4 content types there are and the 2 decisions you have to make and how to make them if you want to start creating content. I also share practically how you can get started with less than 60 minutes per day as a beginner and without knowing your niche. But even if you already create content, this video will be valuable because it will reinforce your reason of why you started in the first place. And you will learn the fundamentals that drive the creator economy, which is, in my opinion, the biggest opportunity of 2024 and the next decade, because building an audience is the most valuable thing I've ever done, which is a quote from Alex Hormozi's book. And like his book, I spent a lot of time on this video. It took me 3 weeks to create, so let's start with the 21 reasons to start creating content in 2024, especially if you're a beginner and have never done it before. Also, if you're an introvert and hesitant of recording yourself and posting those videos where your old friends and family members will be able to see them. After I was able to convince you why this is one of the greatest opportunities for some people, I'll tell you how I got started with less than 1 hour per day. Got more than 750,000 views and over 4,000 subscribers in just a few months. But if you don't want to take my word for it, I've made sure that most of the stuff comes directly or indirectly from the fastest growing creators in the space. I respect your time, so I want to promise 2 things. Even though I created this fancy presentation, I won't try to sell you any product. In fact, I don't have one. And I've also tried my best to make sure you will at least learn one new thing. And hopefully a lot more than that. 9 months ago in March, and after doing more than $3 million with my business, I asked myself, what would I do if money was no object? What would I do if I had 30 million? My first immediate thought was I would hire a talented videographer and start creating content. You see, I've been creating videos since I was 10 or 11, I'm not sure anymore. Made over 200 videos without ever earning money from it, just because I liked it. So the first reason why I create content is purpose. Elon Musk is mainly changing the world through his technology and innovation. I think I can change the world through content and live a meaningful life that way. Now you can share your life lessons without the scars to people who want to listen and change their lives because of you. But always try to ask yourself this question: would I create this if nobody would see it? If you can answer yes to that question, I believe you're creating for yourself instead of for others and can do it forever. Which brings me to reason number 2. If you can't do it forever, don't do it for a day. Which is a quote from Alex Hormozi, and it tells us how important it is to pick things that we can do for the longest amount of time. Because playing long-term games with long-term people almost guarantees you that you will succeed, because most people will give up. And all outsized returns in life come from compound interest. And a quote from Alex: the best things take a long time to build. Great businesses, great bodies, great reputations, etc. And I believe I can keep creating content until I die, because I will always be able to talk in front of a camera or speak or write or design, unless I get a terrible disease. Reason number 3.
I love learning, which I do through teaching. I used to say that I love teaching, and I thought more about it. And it's actually, I don't love teaching. I love learning, and I use teaching as a vehicle for learning. If I want to learn more about sales, I'm going to go write a book on sales, because I know I'm going to learn a whole heck of a lot.
And my spin on this: you're not just able to learn things you can use, you're able to learn things that are actually useful and you want to use. If you do it right, of course, which I go over later in this video. Reason number 4 is connections. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Joe Rogan and Andrew Huberman was Lex Fridman able to meet and even become friends with, all through his podcast. The same happened for Sahil Bloom, who was able to build a relationship with Tim Cook, and because of that met Warren Buffett and also Bill Ackman through his content, who is a billionaire investor, by the way. Now I think I made my point about business connections, but you also be able to make new friends, find your business partners like Iman Gadzhi and like Dan Koh with his software company Cortex, and even find your wife or husband through the content you make. Why, you may ask? Because we're attracted to people who are similar, and your future wife or husband could be watching your content and decide to send you the first message. You start to attract people who like you because you have shared interests and opinions, which means you probably like them too. And over time, you start to see an increase in offline interactions because they either recognize you in the gym or you decide to meet after DMing on social media. All of this wouldn't have happened if you didn't decide to put yourself out there in the first place. Which brings me to point number 8, the beauty of a community. I hear so many entrepreneurs around me, including myself, saying that they wish for a strong group of like-minded people around them. Creating content, I believe, solves this problem in the long term, because you will be able to meet with parallel thinkers all over the world. I'm even thinking of organizing group events myself, like Wim Hof does in Poland, with a group of entrepreneurs who are growing their personal brands. And creating content will make bringing these people together way easier, because you have built trust
You can be the most skilled salesperson in the world, and you will sell less than somebody who has a line out the door because of how much value they've provided every single person in that line. It doesn't matter if you're the best person in the world. Fewer people will buy from you if they've never met you and you've provided nothing to.
But I prefer to call this goodwill, which is the degree of influence over a person's behavior and the positive feeling of your audience. And goodwill compounds faster than money and can be transferred into money if desired at a future date. And it compounds tax-free. So why not focus on the vehicle that compounds at a much faster rate? I'm roughly quoting Alex Hormozi here, and this graph visualizes why I believe goodwill is the most important aspect to focus on. And remember, part of the game is leaving money on the table. And as Alex Hormozi said, the world belongs to those who can keep doing without seeing the result of their doing. And to really make my point, I want to explain very simply what goodwill means to me. Goodwill is the ratio between how much you give and how much you ask. The more you ask, the less you get. So if you give 10 and ask 1, you get 10. And if you give 10 but ask 5, you only get 2. So give more than you ask and you get more than you can imagine. Which leads me to reason number 10. By posting content, you build a compounding asset. Not the content itself, but the audience is what compounds. Or as I like to say it, content fades, audience stays. But remember, the compounding effect doesn't take days. So remember this, when a post doesn't perform as well, it's the audience that compounds.
I realized the content is not the output. The output is the audience. Audience is what compounds.
But not just the audience compounds, your skills too. Depending on the 4 content types you create, which we go over later in this video, you are able to learn the skill of exceptional writing, speaking, listening, marketing, hiring, leading, and I can go on and on. Most of these skills are universal, which makes it easier to get hired if you still need a job at some point. Because like Naval Ravikant said, a taste of freedom can make you unemployable. So in that case, know that your portfolio of content will help you attract talent to your business. And hiring talented people is one of the easiest 10 to 100x ROI opportunities. And because you post content, your employees get to know you better, which is especially useful in a remote environment. Of course, if they check your content. And this will improve your company culture. You're not just building goodwill with your audience, but with your team as well. Both will allow you to make more impact in the world. For example, look at the difference between Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, right? Me, myself, you and employees know much more about Elon than we do about Jeff. Simply because Elon is doing way more interviews. And even though Elon doesn't do these interviews directly with his employees, they still create stronger bonds with him through all his talks online. Which brings me to leverage. Making content is free if you already own a phone. And to prove you don't need this fancy equipment to get views, you can see for yourself that Tim Ferriss here gets millions of views while using a Nokia phone. And Hamza gets millions of views while recording in his bathrobe in his bedroom. And even Alex Hormozi while recording in his closet. And this is what he had to say after building 2 expensive recording studios.
Important lesson that I learned on a vacation. That really shitty one did better than my really fancy one, which then taught me that what's inside the content matters more than the wrapper. So for anybody who's like worried about getting started, about making it look right, I don't think it matters. I mean, I think it matters a little bit, but it's 80-20, so focus on the 80.
And my take on this, fancy content equipment is like makeup. It can't change what's inside. I actually just learned yesterday that it is a real thing called GAS, which stands for Gear Acquisition Syndrome, which is a need for new equipment in order to start or improve, and a contract you make with yourself to be dissatisfied until you receive new tools. By the way, if you want to see more visuals that are used throughout the slides, or case studies like this one that I will show later in this video, then follow me on the social media that you use the most. I'm basically on all of them at Jordan Kruk. Now back to leverage, creating and posting content is not just free but also permissionless, which means it has more leverage than, let's say, money, because most people don't have money, so they need to raise it from investors. They need their permission. And the same is the case with labor from employees. They need to want to work for you. Creating content together with code are the highest forms of leverage, which basically means that for the same input, you get more out. For example, with the same 8 hours of work, you make not $80, but $800. And you get paid to grow with content.
Media is the only business where marketing and delivery are the same. So think about this. If you had, let's say, a show like Joe Rogan's marketing for Joe Rogan is his delivery for Joe Rogan, which is one of the ways that media creates even more leverage. Because if you think about it from an operational perspective, you can just have one team that does all day is focusing on marketing and expanding the audience, pumping and drilling and pumping and drilling. It's getting you new people, and the more people you get from your marketing, the more eyeballs and earballs you sell on the back end through sponsors and endorsements. Now, we're not doing that, but I find it really, really interesting to think about that, is that there's no other business where the thing that you market and the thing that you sell are literally the same.
And you are also in a growing market, unless you decide to create content for newspapers. And remember, it doesn't matter how hard you grow, it matters which boat you get in, which is a quote from Mr. Buffett. And the creator economy is expected to double in growth in the next 4 to 5 years, going from 250 billion to 480 billion in 2028, according to HubSpot. And if you have a phone, you can already start right now because it's free. And when you keep providing value and keep growing your goodwill, you will be able to write a book one day, which is one of the highest searched professions. And it brings me to the last reason why you want to start with content: dividends. Similar to writing a book, you create a piece of content once and it can get revenue, impressions, shares forever, as long as it's somewhat evergreen, of course. You're basically building real estate, but online. So my question to you, why would you not start creating content? Seriously, why not? Is it because of time? You don't create because of time? If you're still watching, I assume I was able to convince you of the opportunity. So the question is not if you want to start creating content, also not when, but probably what niche and how. How do you start? With less than 60 minutes per day. Let me try and help you create clarity for yourself that serve myself. The first decisions you have to make are picking one of the 4 content types to create and picking a platform to post on. You can choose between audio, video, visual, written, or a combination of content types. And I recommend picking the one that feels like play to you, but might look like work to others. For example, start with X, Twitter, if you're good at concise writing or want to become good at that, because you're forced to use maximum 280 characters unless you pay for X Premium. Start with LinkedIn if you're good at research and consulting, or start with Pinterest or Behance if you're great at designing. Start with YouTube or TikTok if you're good with and or on video, and then start. Pick one and start writing, recording or designing, and later start with the more advanced stuff and adding platforms. Like this funnel inspired by Denko that I created and showed in the beginning of this video. But remember, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. So what should you create? I recommend making content you enjoy creating, the audience likes watching, and the platform profits from. And the following has helped me, I'm not joking.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out. And also, if you stay down here and you never fuck around, you'll never find out.
So start looking around by creating about lots of your interests, like I did about psychology, soccer, magic tricks, travel, gaming, religion, self-development, business, and lots more. I won't show you all because it's embarrassing, to be honest, some of them. That's how I found out what I like the most, what I think I can do forever, or at least for a very long time. And I recommend you do the same. Start looking around, and the sooner you find out. And remember, it's not wasted time, it's learning time. Comment your question below so I can share my thoughts on your issue, and you actually get started, and you start living your life like it is a documentary. Because it is. Someone is just not filming you yet.